Death comes to us all, even to speedsters. Here's your look at the new SooSoo toys. This is the Dark Speedster 1/6 scale collectible figure. The Dark Speedster is based on the Black Flash, a character, a dark, menacing Speed Force character that appears in the CW Flash TV series. A big thank you, by the way, to SooSoo Toys for supplying the Dark Speedster that we're going to be having a look at in this review. Of course, before we get this review underway, we're going to figure out how tall the Dark Speedster stands. So, putting the tape measure right to the very top of its head and stopping it right there. It's just a little over 11.5 inches in height. Actually, to be exact, it's 11.6 inches tall. In centimeters, though, it switches over. I switch over on the tape measure here to tell you that it's just short of 30 centimeters in height, 29.6 centimeters to be exact. The figure comes included with a hexagonal display stand, and Flash's calling card, if you will, his trademark logo is right embossed in the center section of this hexagonal base. I like the fact that the lightning bolt is raised while the rest of it is sort of pressed in amongst the what seems to be almost like steel flooring. I really do think that's a nice looking touch. If not all the pieces really primarily all black, it's nice that they add this neon outlining grid, sort of just to kind of break up some of that black. Also, speaking of trademarks, you've got the trademark calling card of lightning bolts. Some lightning bolts running around the perimeter of the display stand. There's the cradle, the standard 6-inch, 6 scale, I should say, cradle, in which the figure can be quite easily propped on top of that. and it certainly will help aid in displaying the figure if you want to get a little bit more creative than simply just standing in a museum pose here. The figure comes with a fair number of accessories, but I feel like I'd be doing a disservice, detracting away from what they've done to the figure itself by simply going right immediately to accessories. So instead, we're rather not going to do that, but instead focus our efforts looking at the Black Flash. The Dark Speedster is really a nice looking representation of the way the Dark Black Flash appears in the Flash TV series. Now, he has one of two distinct looks, and these distinct looks do drastically change the overall look and feel that you're going to get from this figure. This is defaulted. This is the way that he looks currently when you get him immediately out of packaging. The hardest part, if anything, is that the head sculpts are so good on both of them, I feel almost at war with myself deciding which way I want to display it. Primarily, though, a fully masked Black Flash Dark Speedster is presented here immediately when you get it out of packaging. I love that it's got an organic feel to it, even like when he's moving his mouth. These little stretchings draw and stretch themselves out as he's moving his mouth. It's, again, primarily all black. If not, the common trend for all of the figure really is that it's primarily all black. But let me entertain also the idea that despite for the fact that it is so much black on black, they still managed to pull off rather successfully various different textures, all of which we'll talk about in a second. I really do think that the head sculpt, this defaulted head sculpt, is really good. I really am happy with how this turned out. The pitch black, almost doll-like eyes staring very emptily back at you, I must say is quite creepy and eerie, in fact. I like that they've added a black sheen, or a sheen to the black eyes, so that they do a good job of reflecting the light. In fact, if you get the light hitting it just right, it does appear, it almost seems as if it's staring right at you. So again, that is the defaulted head sculpt. The head as well as the neck are all one appliance, so when you are going to be taking this off, in favor of the second one, you're going to be taking off the entire head as well as the neck. So we'll talk about that in a second. Other things that are going to be swapped out initially when you do decide you want to change one mold, one head sculpt to the other, is that you're also going to be changing out the Dark Speedster's emblem. This one currently is a full black representation of this Flash trademark logo. Even the lightning bolt also is done in all black as well. Now on the underside, it's magnetized. Clever that they went this route. It's easily just a case where you're going to attach it over top of the zipper, and that's really all you're going to be able to do. The thing is, though, with it sitting on the zipper, oftentimes it feels like it wants to kind of shift off, being that the zipper, of course, is right up the middle seam. The emblem sometimes does want to, you kind of have to very carefully balance it over top of the zipper. The magnet is basically like right here, and again, when you are attaching it, it's not going to attach anywhere other than dead set right in the center, other than, again, for the fact that the zipper does kind of impede that just a little bit. I like the emblem, though. Love the head sculpt. Fantastic, fantastic head sculpt that SooSoo Toys has done to this figure here. Now, how does the rest of the figure stack up? Because obviously it can't just simply be an amazing head sculpt. How does the rest of the figure stack up? Well, Dark Speedster is clad in what I could describe as a faux leather outfit. The seam work seems to be generally pretty good. I don't have any issues where it seems like the seams are going to be separating. The tailoring seems quite good. As I discussed earlier, I mean, even though it is all black, you do get a little bit of, you do actually get a fair bit of this silver trimming. Again, mimicking the lightning bolt effect that's running up the sides of its torso, across its shoulders, and even down its arms and down its legs. In between those areas, those boundaries of silver, he actually gets some additional texturing. That's a nice departure from the otherwise matte, very untextured leather pants or faux leather outfit that he has. The jacket is a zip-up top, so I mean, if you were to remove the emblem very carefully, This whole section here obviously is a zipper. I'm not going to unzip it just because I always find it's so tricky, so very tricky to kind of get everything back when you've got a little small zipper to work with. But I'll just quickly pry it away just so you guys can see there is the magnet right there. So it's right around almost dead center for where almost his pectoral muscles would be. Other than that, underneath all that is a standard buck male body, which of course will have articulation. We'll talk about that in a second, obviously, as well. But overall, I'm really happy with the costume. I like the costume. It looks fairly accurate to the way it did in the series. It does have a zipper, and I think even in the series, it does also have a zipper, so it's pretty accurate there as well. And then the only other things that really aren't fabric are the hands, which we've already discussed, and the Dark Speedster's feet, or his boots. Now there is a little bit of soft plastic at play here. It seems as if you would be able to manipulate the feet slightly. Not very much though, so really when it comes to putting him in dynamic poses, you're not pretty much going to be able to accomplish much here on the feet, but you're rather more going to be accomplishing it in the knees, the thighs, and of course the tops of the legs. Providing a competitive contender for how you're going to be displaying the figure on the shelf, SooSoo Toys also includes this fantastic head portrait that you can swap out with the one that currently is residing on the shoulders of the figure. Now again, this is really the hardest part for me because I like both head sculpts actually equally. I like the fact that this one has almost an empty, vacant stare staring right back at you, but there's something to be said about the decayed, lifeless face that is on the alternate portrait. I mean, you can see just a fantastic job. One thing that really has drawn me most to this head sculpt, and hopefully the camera is going to be doing justice to this, is his teeth. I really like the discoloration, the yellowing of his teeth. It even almost looks as if there's almost blood at the very top where the teeth connect to the gums. Whether that is intentional or just simply the way it was painted accidentally, I really do like that end result. They've added a sheen both to the eyes, to the skin, and most definitely to the teeth. I really like that. Even just tilting it slightly, the light makes it look like the teeth are slimy, wet, and just decaying in front of you. You can see how it evolves itself from looking like this to looking like this. A very similar looking sculpting on the one side, and then of course very drastically different on the other. Obviously, one of the other benefits of possibly using, say, this head sculpt to this one here is the fact that now not only have you got the flesh tone that could be incorporated to an otherwise rather dark looking costume, you've got the flesh tone, but you've also got this bright crimson red now sporting on the sides of his, well, his lightning bolt fins here. To change out the head, I mean, I've already gone ahead and taken off the defaulted head. And as you can see, there's just a very large ball socket right there and a ball joint right there. You're just going to fit it into the collar section, making, of course, sure that the collar doesn't get kind of bunched and tucked inside. You really don't want that. But take the head sculpt and just wiggle it onto the torso. You'll feel a good secure grab of that, almost in the same way that Black Flash would grab some of his victims in the series, but now the head portrait is completely intact, with one other thing that we need to do. The one other thing we need to do is change out his emblem. Now they did give you 2 emblems to work with, both are magnetized. So we're going to go ahead and take this one off here from his costume, and we're going to replace it with this one right here. And it's going to work the same way. It's going to attach via magnets. It's still sort of going to balance over top of where the seam of the zipper is down the middle of his costume. But still, I love the fact that it's magnetized. It gives you the option, certainly at least, that if you are going to be changing out the heads, the emblem should really also be changed to make it fairly accurate to the way it looks in the series. I say fairly accurate because I think in the series this wasn't white. I feel as if the center circle of the emblem was in black, with the outer trim being red and the lightning bolt also being red. But again, I'm happy with the fact that we just get the option to swap out, like I said, from the all black emblem to the one here that's white and red. Again, though, that's a crazy looking head sculpt. I'm really hoping that the camera is doing it proper justice, because you can see, I mean, there's a lot of sculpting that they put into that head sculpt. And again, my big thing that I advocate as well is you can really have a good head sculpt, but if the paint is disappointing, then a head sculpt simply gets lost in the mix. I'm happy to report, and hopefully this review will also show you guys, as good as the head sculpt is as well, they've also put a really good, awesome paint job into this as well, bringing out some of the sculptings that they etched into the head here. So we looked at the head sculpt. We looked at the tailoring of his costume, and we looked at his interchangeable options. Let's have a look at some of the other accessories that come included with the Dark Speedster. Let's first have a look at his hands, and for this end of the review, obviously we've already looked at the alternate head sculpts, so we're not going to spend any more time on that. For his various different hand options, you know what? We'll start with, I always like to start with fists, because when it's all said and done, I generally don't display any of my figures really with closed fists. But SooSoo Toys does include a pair of closed fists that you can very quite easily add to the socket sections of the Dark Speedster. Again, not really what I'm going to plan on displaying the figure with, but again, I appreciate the fact that they do include closed fists. As we move further along, back to where I initially was going to start looking at the hands, he comes with a pair of running hands. That's as best a way to describe it as I possibly can, as they are certainly flat hands. I really can't think of what other reasoning you would want to use them. I mean, even to drop them down to the sides, if you were just dropping his arms down to the sides of his torso, the arms obviously, or the hands look obviously like they should be doing something else. So you have a pair of running hands, and you can use those in the sockets as well. And then he comes with two pairs of different gripping hands, or partially relaxed gripping hands. You have these ones right here, which I really actually quite like. And then you've got these ones here. Let me go ahead and just take one off so I can show you. I'll also show you too how easy it is just to take that off. And let me show you the variations between the two hands. So we'll grab, this is the hand that we were looking at that was right here. This was the hand that was in the socket. So you can see it's a little bit more exaggerated. This one right here forms almost more so a C, whereas this one here is a little bit more relaxed. Entirely, again, which way you want to display it, it's all up to you. Let's say if I want to go back, and instead of putting back this hand, I'm going to go ahead and display it with this hand instead. I'll show you. It's just a simple case of taking the hand, there's the hole, and attaching it to the peg located on the bottom of his forearm. Just attach that, as you can see, couldn't be any bit easier than that. And those are the hands that come included with the Dark Speedster. Now you are looking at these and you're wondering to yourself, what exactly are these? Well, the folks over at SooSoo Toys also includes various different energy constructs, if you will, that can be attached to various places on the figure itself. Now they are, I will stress this, stress being the operative word, these are made of a translucent blue plastic. So when you are putting this onto the figure, I would stress that you be very, very careful with these. There are a few examples and few instances that I'm seeing where it looks like it might be a crack, but it's just simply the way it's been molded together. Unfortunately, though, there are a couple of examples. Let me just show you. There's these ones here. And again, just of various different shapes, different styles, different designs in which you can attach to any part of his body. In fact, actually, in the opener of this review, as I like to do these little montage, kind of different ways that you can display the figure, I alternated just with where I was putting these. I was putting them on his arms, on his legs. The sad news, however, to report, here are the other two examples here, is that when I did get one out of the packaging, it was already broken. It probably was just moving around inside the packaging and ultimately broke right off. Let me just show you where that cut happened. The break happened right there. So you can see, it's probably going to take some glue. I mean, glue will fix that, and I'll just attach those two pieces back together, and then we'll be as good as new, or almost as good as new. Now this would be actually a good construct, a good lightning bolt electricity effect. I could probably add like around his head. Just take off obviously his head first, and then, or you can even just put this through his head. Let me just show you. I'm going to take this off just so I don't drop it. Take the head sculpt off. There we go. And we can feed this through his neck. Just as an option. I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily this route you want to go. And you can have that attached to the back of his neck. Now, obviously, it looks jarring like this. It will obviously require a whole bunch of these other ones to be added to his body. And again, it's simply just a case of prying them away very carefully. Get them around the limbs that you want to be using them around. And then you can just angle them any which way that you want. There are some of them I have noticed that work a little bit better than others. Case in point, actually. This one's a little bit wider, so instead of maybe putting it around his arm, you could instead consider putting it around his leg. And obviously, depending on mileage may vary, you could just keep going to town until you put energy and lightning all around his body. It's entirely then up to you how you want to display the figure, but kind of gave you some ideas at the beginning of this review. I think ultimately when it comes to displaying this figure, I'm probably going to have him displayed in a running pose, and then I'll have the electricity kind of running it, projecting out from his legs and his arms. One last closing thought, by the way, on the electricity. As they are in various different shapes, they're all the same color. They're this blue color. In this series, though, it looks primarily like Black Flash when he is running or generating electricity around him. It usually is red, not blue. I'm wondering why they didn't include red lightning bolt instead of favoring blue. But again, either way, any way you slice it, I'm just thrilled for the fact that they include these as something that you can add on to the figure. Having a look at the figure's articulation, I mean, we've already discussed it. There is a single ball joint at the base of the neck. And with that also means that the head rotates all the way around. It hinges up and down, and it can rock also back and forth. The figure also does have an upper torso crunch. Now, while you are doing this, you might want to be mindful for the fact, there it is right there, that you don't accidentally clip this. One good thing, though, is it's almost a saving grace that it's magnetized and not seamed and not stitched to the jacket. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to undo the zipper, not that you would want to anyways, if this was seamed in place. But also, if you happen to clip it while you are grabbing onto its torso and manipulating it back and forth, magnets, certainly it's a lot easier for these to fall off and just replace them back into place than if they had seamed these in place and you were moving it and accidentally clipped it. You would have ripped the seam, you would have ripped the stitching that would have put this in place. So it's actually a benefit that this is magnetized and not stitched onto the costume. So he has an upper torso ball joint. He has a lower torso crunch, which also has a waist swivel. The arms hinge out. You can move them forward. You can move them back. You have a swivel at the top section. Actually, it seems like, there it is right there. It's swivel at the top. He's also got a swivel in the arm. Hinge, possibly a double hinge in the elbow. The hands rotate all the way around, and they also hinge back and forth. For the Dark Speedster's legs, they move quite adequately forward and equally so to the back. It gets a little tighter when you are moving them to the back, so you're not going to have as much freedom as you would moving the legs forward. Still enough, though, that you'd be able to successfully accomplish him in running poses. He has a swivel on the top cut of the thigh, a double hinge on the knee, and as we had already talked about earlier into this review, the feet are encased inside of a soft plastic boot. There's not really enough give that you can move the feet up and down, so you're really only relegated to being able to rotate the boots back and forth. To be fair, I haven't watched a whole lot of The Flash, but to Flash's credit, I've watched more of The Flash than I've watched any of the other superhero shows that are currently on TV. Just not really my thing. What I have watched of The Flash, I had intended to sit down and kind of get through all the seasons, and ultimately it just became more sporadic watching than anything else. If it was on TV and I happened to flip on to a channel that had a show, an episode of The Flash running, I usually would watch the rest of the episode and kind of gauge my opinion from that. It was actually through that sporadic watching that I first stumbled onto the Black Flash, a really dark, mysterious figure, something of which I really didn't see before on TV. It was kind of scary. It was a mixture of like The Dead with a superhero-themed show, and I really caught my attention right away. When SooSoo Toys offered the chance for me to have a look at this figure, I jumped at the chance because I really did think the character's design was really neat. Physically now having this in hand, I have to admit that SooSoo Toys has done a great job on this figure. There are a few little hiccups, some of which of course I expressed in this review. The positives are, of course, the good tailoring that they've done for the costume, a fully articulated figure as what you would expect to get with a 6-scale release, and superb alternate head sculpts, both of which, again, are competing right now for my attention as to which way I'm finally going to display the figure when he's on the shelf. The negatives are, like, small, and like I said, the emblem, for example, with the white and the red, I'm certain it was black and red in the episode, or in the episodes that Black Flash appeared looking like this. And other than for the fact that the electricity, I kind of wish, even if they wanted to include the blue electricity for his defaulted look, I wish that they could have included the red electricity for how he looks right now, just so you can mix and match it. I will say though, if you guys are interested in picking this one up for yourself, I think it's a really good release. Just be careful of the electricity. Be careful of how you handle it, because it is thin translucent plastic. And like thin translucent plastic will be, it may break if you're not too careful with it. So just take my advice. And if you guys, like I said, are interested in picking this one up for yourself, I'll provide the link down below where you guys can currently order the Dark Speedster for yourself. Again, a big thank you to SooSoo Toys for allowing me the opportunity to review this figure. Really, it was a big fan of the Black Flash, and I really think they've done it justice, or in this case, I guess, injustice, in a 6-scale figure release. Today we were having a look at the new SooSoo Toys. This was the Dark Speedster, which I guess is product code SST010, and this was the 1/6 scale collectible figure of the Black Flash. If you guys haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to this channel, if you're new here, hit that little red square subscription button at the bottom right-hand corner of this screen. Also, make sure you turn on your bell notifications. That will guarantee that when new videos are coming onto this channel, you'll never miss a beat. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.